There's lots of good reasons to not get the medicine. And one of them is the fact that people are pushing so hard for you to get the medicine. In fact, that's one of my number one reasons, is the amount of coercion and pushiness really turns me off. Whenever somebody is really trying to get me to do something and it's all based on kind of skewing my emotions and fear and my need to like fit in, when they're using all those as the buttons they're pushing, like, oh, if you do this, you'll be able to have freedoms. If you do this, you won't be ostracized from society. If you do this, you'll be a good person. If you do this, you'll get donuts, alcohol, and other weird things that are not healthy. If you do this, you are healthy. All of this extremely pushy, ongoing marketing campaign is one of the reasons I'm not getting it. 2, I don't have to get anything right now or do anything. I've been healthy. I've been in sweaty dance clubs like the Britney Spears "I'm a Slave for You" music video, surrounded by sweaty, writhing bodies, and I'm fine. I've been in theme parks in bands with people from all over the country, smooshed, and I'm fine. I've been doing all that stuff this past year, and I've been absolutely fine. I've been around kids, I've been around adults, I've been around all kinds of people, and I make smoothies, I definitely eat my fruits and veggies, definitely kept healthy, but I've been doing well by using those methods. I think turmeric and spinach are great methods for my health, and that's what I'm choosing to do. And just because of reason number 1, a constant pushy, abusive campaign that kind of threatens me and uses fear against me, that's not going to make me want to get the medicine. So that's number 2. 3 is the PCR test. The PCR test, which is supposed to, quote, measure and show whether you have the disease, is not a diagnostic tool. The creator of the test, Carrie Mullis, has said this is not a diagnostic test. They were using it during an AIDS epidemic, and that's when he said it. It was still Fauci and them. They were using that PCR test, and Carrie Mullis said, this test is not diagnostic, it only measures genetic material. It just measures, you set an amplification point to look at genetic material in the body, and depending on what that dial of amplification is set at, that will say whether you have something. But it doesn't say that you have something. All it is measuring is, oh, this is the genetic material of an orange. This is the genetic material of Coca-Cola. This is the genetic material of a human. This is the genetic material of a puppy, And so that test being used, and that's the basis of the cases, that seems pretty suspect. And what's especially suspect is anybody that mentions the PCR test and asks this very question, poses this curiosity, this science-based question, concern, and point is censored, minimized, maligned, mischaracterized, misrepresented. Okay, so that raises a lot of red flags. If it was truly, if talking about the PCR test and what it does was not a threat, then they would just answer the question. They wouldn't have to hide it, or they wouldn't malign the person that dares to ask the question. So that's my next reason, the PCR test. Look into it. Look into Carrie Mullis, look into the PCR test, look into what it does. My next reason is Koch's postulate. Now, this says that you must isolate a virus in order for it to be classified. Now, the current disease we have, COVID, has not been isolated, and so it has not fulfilled the requirement of the scientific method, which says it must be isolated under Koch's postulate. That's why its official scientific name is still SARS something. They still don't call it its own disease. It's just under the SARS name. Look more into this, because this is something that, again, when people raise questions about has COVID been isolated, that's, again, there's no conversation, there's no dialogue, there's no curiosity, it's just immediate shutdown. Okay, that's the next reason, is the fact that when you raise questions, when you raise concerns, whether you're in the scientific community, whether you're a lay person, all of the people who raise questions and concerns that go off repeating slogans and platitudes, they all get maligned, censored, and ostracized. They all get severely kind of belittled, ridiculed. Okay, well then tell me, why don't you just answer the question? Why do you have to gaslight and malign the person? Especially when they are scientists or doctors bringing these things up. So it's not as though it's just follow the science. It's also, no, you're not actually following science, because science has nuance and science does rely on these dialogues and these questions raised. And so when you're making science something that no one can ask any questions, they have to just repeat slogans and platitudes, that's not science, that's a cult. Okay? So that's the next reason. Another reason is that all of the communication about COVID has, as I've mentioned, this repetitive quality, much like you're in a trance citing slogans. Like I've said, you're always citing platitudes, and they're always things like follow the science, I trust science, and the way that, and the people, when they argue with you about it, they have this strange idea that the people that are raising questions don't follow science. No, they actually follow it all the way down the yellow brick road. You're just stopping right at this platitude and then not thinking beyond that. So the repetitive messaging, to me, in addition to the pushiness of the repetitive messaging that does not really kind of dive into questions raised, but just kind of keeps it at one level, which that level basically is, please don't ask questions, please don't raise concerns. If you do, you will be slapped down and you better comply. Like, that's the underlying threat of asking questions, raising concerns, and not repeating the slogans is your reputation will be hurt, and you will be ostracized, you will be belittled, you will be, I mean, there's an underlying threat to just asking, hey, is there more to this? So, yeah, so these are the reasons why I'm not going to get the medicine. It's actually because of the campaign pushing me to do so for all of these reasons. And there are other aspects to it, but these are the primary reasons. And it's a matter of, there's not, why the rush too? There's such a strange suspect element to it. And I really think it'd be interesting to have more discussions about it instead of this weird either-or kind of quality where you're either in the tribe that injects the medicine and worships it and talks about it all the time, and then, you know, puts your online dating profile up to say that you have the medicine, or you're somebody that is completely stupid and against science. It's like, no, most people are not either of these extremes. They're not the person that's that religious about it, although there are definitely those types of people, and you're not the person that's just overly hating on it. Most of us just think, well, I'm going to trust my own judgment, and a lot of things seem suspect about this, and that's okay. Don't be pressured to do something because everyone is kind of holding fear and really repetitive messaging and kind of this intimidation. You know, there's no, intimidation is not a reason to do something. It's always the reason to not do something. So stay firm in what you believe and do what you need to do for you. To each their own. There is not, you're not a bad person if you don't get the medicine, and you're not a bad person if you do choose to get it. You're not bad either way, but this level of thinking in this very tribal either or paradigm, that is what's kind of scary and, dare I say, bad. So just try to realize that we need to get back to each their own, and we need to get back to being curious instead of sanctimonious.